Bitcoin is one of the advantages of Bitcoin is that it's a global asset. It's not controlled by anyone. It's self-custodial, can't be diluted. And so anytime you have dysfunction in some of these major markets, these major currencies, it does over time feed into the Bitcoin narrative. I think what really kind of contributes to Bitcoin's next bull run is not something like this necessarily. It's one of a couple things. It could be the spot ETF approval. If we get one of those, that's a new demand source. But the metric that Bitcoin is historically most correlated with is global liquidity. If you, for example, were to have the central bank intervene on these bond market situations, kind of like how they had to intervene back in March on the banking system, whenever you get that kind of liquidity intervention, that's when Bitcoin's likely to do very well. That is very responsive to that historically, and I think it probably would be again. So that's the kind of thing more I'm looking forward to what's going to propel Bitcoin's next bull run. But all these kind of narratives around the margin, I do think feed into the longer term narrative of Bitcoin.
Lyn Alden is a brilliant economist who does not get enough recognition. The number one asset she is looking at for the future, Bitcoin. For those not familiar with Lyn Alden, she is an investment strategist and financial analyst. She's well known for her expertise in macroeconomics and equity analysis. Alden is also the founder of Lyn Alden Investment Strategy, a financial advisory firm, so suffice to say she knows her stuff. Although she rarely gives out price predictions, at the Swan Bitcoin conference, Lyn broke down where she expects Bitcoin to be in 2 years' time and why she wouldn't be surprised at a 6-figure Bitcoin. Also guys, if you want to trade any crypto, check out the first link in the description to Prime XBT. Not only can you trade cryptocurrency, but you can trade stocks, commodities, and Forex all on the one platform. The first few dozen that have not signed up to Prime XBT yet and use the link in the description will get up to a $7,000 sign-up bonus. My favorite thing about Prime XBT is their trading contests, which are completely free, and you can even use virtual funds to compete against other traders. All you have to do is open an account with Prime XBT, use virtual funds to go head-to-head against other traders, and if you're one of the best, you'll win real prizes. So if you haven't signed up already, it's completely free to get started. Slam that link in the description for up to a $7,000 sign-up bonus. Back to Lyn Alden and her outlook for Bitcoin.
No, I'm saying that at $27,000, I think it's an attractive price when looking back several years from now.
You mean to buy it?
To buy it,
Okay,
yes.
it's not your price forecast then.
No. No, I think this is a good accumulation zone. And it's basically saying that I'm bullish with a multi-year time frame, but a multi-month time frame is mostly going to be governed most likely by liquidity or things like spot ETF approvals or denials. There's all these kind of things that just can throw curveballs and change. If we do get kind of a bond yield spike and a dollar spike and a liquidity problem, Bitcoin could go down a few $1,000s again. You know, who knows? So I don't really trade it on a week by week or month by month basis, but I do think looking back 2 years from now or so, I do think that 27,000 is an attractive entry price. And then you just have to manage your volatility around that. So I mean, if you're an 80-year-old retiree, you know, you have to manage that volatility that Bitcoin has compared to if you're a younger investor. And of course, you also have to manage how much have you looked into Bitcoin, how much have you studied Bitcoin versus are you just looking at a price chart? Because I would argue that the more you understand it, the more you kind of naturally want to have exposure to it, but maybe not for everyone.
Right. Okay. So if you're saying that getting in at 27,000 in 2 years' time is going to look like a good idea, begs the question, where do you see Bitcoin price in 2 years' time? For the number go up, people that always like to hear a price forecast.
So conservatively, I expect it to probably be double by let's say late 2025. So, you know, a little over 2 years from now.
So that still wouldn't hit its all-time high.
Yeah, I think that's the conservative level. I think the range of outcomes, like 6 figures, would not surprise me at all. Generally, what we see is that if you look at measures of global liquidities, and we can define that as global broad money supply in dollar-denominated terms, right? So that comes down to how strong or weak the dollar is relative to other major currencies, and how quickly are their broad money supplies expanding. Bitcoin is highly correlated with that metric. So generally speaking, when money supplies are going up very quickly and or the dollar is weakening, generally Bitcoin's in one of its major bull run. That's historically what's been the case. Whereas when the dollar is strengthening, when global liquidity is tighter, when we have quantitative tightening, when we have these kind of attempts to rein in, you know, this inflation, that's when Bitcoin has a bear market and then a big consolidation market. And so again, the next 6 months, liquidity, pretty hard to predict, but I would very much expect that within the next 2 years, we're probably gonna have another positive liquidity cycle. I would say that it's very hard for them to manage things so tightly for another 2 years. And so if we do get that another positive liquidity cycle, I would expect it to be very favorable for Bitcoin, but there's an inelastic supply. There's a potential spot ETF. There's how much liquidity are we going to get? There could be trend changes in certain countries, for example. Maybe a lot of people in India, for example, maybe Bitcoin starts catching on there. Maybe it doesn't, right? So there's these outside variables that could really change Bitcoin being at, say, 50,000 or 200,000. And so I would expect that in the next cycle, the next, say, 2-3 years, I would very much expect to reach new all-time highs. 2 years specifically, conservatively, I would say I'd be surprised if we're not significantly north of here. That's why I said 50,000 as what I would consider kind of a conservative target, but it could comfortably be in the 6 figures. And I think that rather than thinking with specific price levels, the way that I approach this is this network and is this asset more attractive than other things I can buy on a multi-year time frame? And my assessment for Bitcoin is that it is. It's still, on a risk-adjusted basis, one of the things I definitely want to have exposure to, not to be all in on, but to continue to have significant exposure on.
While maintaining exposure to gold as well?
Yes, I'm also long gold, I'm long T-bills, I'm long energy producers, energy transporters, and then a variety of other stocks too, kind of growth at a reasonable price, equities, certain international equities, real estate exposure, all that's been tricky lately, of course, but I personally maintain a diverse book of assets. The one that I think is the most dynamic, the most interesting over the next multi-year time frame would be Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And in addition to owning the asset, I also do some venture capital work in the space. So I work with Ego Death Capital, and part of why I'm bullish is we see the pipeline of startups out there or companies expanding and new ideas. And so we see the kind of the things that are on the horizon, not just for this cycle, but for the next cycle.
So there's a compelling perspective from one of the brightest minds in the financial world, Lyn Alden. Her take on Bitcoin, coming from her deep understanding of macroeconomic and equity analysis, is something every serious investor should consider. If you were introduced to Lyn Alden for the first time today and appreciated her insights, or if you've been following her for a while and enjoyed hearing her perspective on Bitcoin's potential, let us know in the comments below. Anyway guys, hope you all enjoyed today's video and that provided you with some value. I'll see you all in the next one, and as always, all the best.